Welcome to the final lesson in EDU 284, Cyber Safety and Ethical Digital Practice in Early Childhood Education. As early childhood professionals, our responsibility extends beyond effective use of technology. We must also ensure it is secure, ethical, and aligned with professional standards. In today's classrooms, we manage digital portfolios, assessment data, communication apps, photographs, and confidential family information. Each of these tools carries both opportunity and risk. In this fourth and final lesson, we focus on protecting digital tools and upholding our ethical responsibilities. You will examine common cybersecurity threats in early learning environments, explore best practices for safeguarding classroom devices and confidential information, and connect these practices directly to the principles outlined in the National Association for the Education of Young Children NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct. We will also analyze real-world scenarios involving data privacy and digital professionalism, reflect on ethical decision-making and technology use, and develop a personal action plan for maintaining cyber-safe practices in your future classroom. By the end of this lesson, and this entire module, you should feel confident not only in integrating technology appropriately, but in modeling integrity, professionalism, and digital responsibility in every interaction with children and families. Let's conclude this module by focusing on what it truly means to be an ethical and cyber-safe early childhood professional. In this final lesson, we are focusing on protecting digital tools and upholding our ethical responsibilities as early childhood professionals. Cyber safety is not just about technology skills. It is about professionalism and protecting children's privacy. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify common cybersecurity threats in early learning environments, such as insecure devices or data breaches, and explain best practices for protecting confidential information. You will also connect digital professionalism to the National Association for the Education of Young Children Code of Ethical Conduct, applying ethical principles to real-world digital scenarios. Finally, you will develop a personal action plan to ensure your future classroom practices are both cyber-safe and ethically sound. Before we begin, I'd like you to pause and honestly reflect on these questions. This is not for a grade. It's about awareness. Think about your own digital habits. Have you reused passwords across platforms? Would you be comfortable if your personal data were stored the same way some classrooms store children's records? Consider professionalism as well. Is it ever appropriate to share classroom photos on personal social media accounts? Why or why not? And if you noticed a coworker left confidential child records open on a shared computer, how would you respond? Take a moment to jot down your thoughts. We'll revisit these questions at the end of the lesson to examine how your thinking has grown. Begin by reflecting on the discussion prompt at the top of the slide. Consider the situation carefully and think about how you would respond as a professional in an early childhood setting. Now, let's expand on the key points below. Cybersecurity in early learning environments centers on confidentiality, data protection, and professional responsibility. Programs maintain sensitive information, including child records, medical documentation, assessment data, and family contact details. Even small security lapses, such as weak passwords, unattended devices, or unsecured networks, can compromise that information. Common threats often stem from everyday habits: reusing passwords, failing to log out of shared computers, using personal devices for documentation, or clicking suspicious email links. While these actions may seem minor, they create significant vulnerability. Best practice requires intentional safeguards: strong, unique passwords, secure storage systems, approved communication platforms, and devices consistently locked when not in use. Protecting digital information is not optional. It is part of maintaining trust with families and upholding professional standards. Let's examine some of the most common cybersecurity threats in early childhood settings. First, weak or reused passwords create significant vulnerability. When the same password is used across platforms, one breach can compromise multiple systems, including child records and communication apps. Shared or unsecured devices are another risk. If classroom computers or tablets are left logged in or unattended, confidential information can easily be accessed by unauthorized individuals. Phishing emails are increasingly common. These messages often appear legitimate but are designed to trick users into revealing login credentials or downloading malicious software. The use of personal devices for classroom documentation also creates exposure, especially if those devices lack encryption or secure storage protections. Unsecured Wi-Fi networks make it easier for outsiders to intercept data being transmitted. Finally, inappropriate photo sharing, such as posting classroom images on personal social media, can violate confidentiality, consent agreements, and professional standards. Each of these threats is preventable with intentional safeguards and professional awareness. Let's break this scenario down step by step. At first glance, the teacher's intention is positive. She wants to document children's learning. However, the risk begins when she uses her personal phone. Personal devices are not always encrypted, password protected to program standards, or covered under the center's data security policies. The second concern is uploading the photos to her personal cloud storage. That creates another layer of vulnerability. Who has access to that cloud account? Is it secured with two-factor authentication? Is it compliant with program policy? Once children's images leave the program's protected system, control over that data is significantly reduced. We must also consider consent boundaries. Even if families signed photo permission forms, those permissions typically apply to approved program platforms, not personal storage accounts. Professionally, this situation reflects a lapse in judgment, not necessarily intent. The teacher should have waited for the classroom device or consulted the administration for guidance. As a coworker or director, your response should be professional and solution-focused. Address the risk, reinforce policy, and ensure safeguards are followed moving forward. Unsecured or personal devices are prime targets for cyber attacks because they often contain sensitive program information, children's records, and classroom materials. Some common threats to watch for include spoofed client or family email addresses, which make messages appear legitimate but are actually fraudulent. Phishing links in emails can trick you into revealing your password or downloading malware. Attachments can also contain viruses or ransomware that can lock shared drives and make your files inaccessible. The most dangerous attacks often hide in plain sight, appearing as routine updates or familiar messages. Staying alert, using secure devices, and following professional cybersecurity practices can prevent these threats before they cause serious problems. Let's examine this scenario. At first glance, both options seem convenient, but they carry very different risks. Option A follows professional and ethical standards. The program's secure, password-protected cloud system ensures that only authorized staff can access files, that data is archived for program records, and that children's privacy is protected. This approach aligns with NAEYC's ethical principles, legal requirements, and professional responsibility. Option B, while convenient, creates multiple vulnerabilities. Saving files on a personal USB drive or personal cloud reduces control over sensitive information. Emailing copies to yourself increases the risk of accidental sharing, lost devices, or unauthorized access. Even with good intentions, this option can compromise children's confidentiality and breach professional standards. When making decisions, always prioritize security, ethical responsibility, and professional accountability over convenience. This scenario highlights that the tools we choose and how we manage data directly reflect our commitment to ethical digital practice. Phishing emails are one of the most common cybersecurity threats in early childhood settings. They often look like legitimate messages from families, colleagues, or program administrators, but their goal is to trick you into revealing passwords or personal information or downloading malicious software. Some key warning signs include misspelled or slightly altered email addresses. These subtle changes can indicate a fraudulent sender. Another red flag is an unusual sense of urgency, with phrases like "act now" or "immediate action required." Phishing messages often include unexpected attachments or shortened links that can hide malicious content. Taking a moment to carefully review emails, confirm the sender, and avoid clicking suspicious links can prevent a serious data breach. By staying alert to these signs, you protect not only your classroom technology and children's information, but also the trust families place in your program. Let's walk through this sample email carefully. First, notice the sender's address, alex.name@gmail.com. That's a subtle misspelling of a familiar domain, which is a common tactic used in phishing. Always check for small changes in email addresses, even if the sender seems familiar. Next, look at the subject line. Urgent. Please review the attached design by today. The sense of urgency is a red flag. Phishing attempts often pressure you to act quickly without thinking. Finally, check the attachment. campaign_review_final.pdf.exe. The double extension is a trick to hide a potentially harmful executable file. Never open attachments from unknown or suspicious sources. To stay safe, pause and verify. Contact the sender directly using a known trusted method, like calling or sending a separate email to their official address before opening attachments or clicking links. Being cautious protects both your data and your professional integrity. Now that we've looked at common cybersecurity risks, let's focus on prevention. Being proactive protects children's data, maintains trust with families, and saves time and resources compared to fixing a breach after it happens. Some best practices include using only approved platforms for storing and sharing classroom information rather than personal apps or unverified tools. Always store data in secure, password-protected systems, and make sure you have informed consent from families before sharing or documenting any child information. Strong, unique passwords are essential for every account, and enabling two-factor authentication adds an extra layer of protection. Finally, always lock devices when they're unattended, whether it's a tablet, computer, or smartphone. These simple strategies create a culture of security and professionalism in your classroom. Ethical responsibility in early childhood extends beyond the classroom into all digital interactions. Protecting children's privacy means taking deliberate steps to secure information, whether it's developmental records, photos, or family communications. Setting expiration dates on shared links, using secure platforms, and limiting access are practical ways to ensure data is protected. Confidentiality in digital spaces is just as important as confidentiality in person. Every choice reflects your professionalism and integrity. As educators, we also model behavior for colleagues and families. Responsible sharing, careful handling of data, and appropriately addressing concerns demonstrate digital professionalism and reinforce trust. These practices align with the NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct, which guides us to respect children and families, maintain confidentiality, and act with accountability. The next few slides will show how we can apply these ethical principles in our classrooms and in our daily technology use, providing concrete strategies to keep children, families, and our professional reputations safe. Ethics in digital practice isn't just about following rules, it's about modeling responsible behavior and protecting those in your care. Handling children's records, photos, and communications responsibly builds trust with families and colleagues. Every decision you make online, from which app you use to how you share information, reflects your professionalism and integrity. Being aware of the ethical implications of digital work helps prevent breaches, misunderstandings, and harm to children or families. The NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct guides educators in making ethical decisions in all areas of practice, including technology. Respecting children and families means safeguarding confidential information and obtaining consent before sharing data or photos. Technology should be used to enhance learning and communication, not for convenience if it risks safety or privacy. By following these principles, you remain accountable to the children, families, and colleagues you serve and demonstrate professional integrity in your daily practice. The NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct provides guidance for decisions in all early childhood contexts, including technology. Respecting children's and families' rights means keeping data confidential and ensuring consent. Technology should enhance learning, communication, and documentation, but convenience should never outweigh safety or privacy. Following these principles ensures accountability to the children, families, and colleagues you serve, while reinforcing your professional credibility. Applying ethical practices means actively making choices that protect children and families. Always use secure, program-approved platforms for communication or storing sensitive data. Never use personal devices or accounts for program information, and always obtain informed consent before sharing photos or observations. When faced with a dilemma, like whether to quickly share a classroom photo, pause and reflect, what would align with professional standards and NAEYC ethics? Modeling this behavior sets a strong example for colleagues and reinforces a culture of trust and accountability. This scenario requires immediate professional judgment. You notice that a child's assessment report is open on a shared computer as families enter the classroom. The first priority is confidentiality. Your immediate action should be to discreetly secure the information, either by minimizing the screen or logging out, so that no unauthorized individuals can view it. Next, consider how to address the coworker. This should be handled professionally and respectfully. Avoid public correction. Instead, have a private conversation focused on protecting children's privacy, not assigning blame. The goal is shared accountability. Ethical principles guide this response. Confidentiality, respect for families, and professional responsibility, standards reinforced by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, require us to actively safeguard sensitive information. Finally, reflect on prevention. Could automatic screen locks be enabled? Should staff review digital security procedures? Ethical practice is not only about correcting mistakes, but strengthening systems to prevent future risks. This slide is where you move from understanding cybersecurity concepts to intentionally planning how you will implement them. An action plan is a practical commitment to specific behaviors and professional standards you will consistently follow in your classroom. First, think about securing classroom devices. Consider what habits you will personally adopt to prevent unauthorized access. This includes how you manage passwords, how you lock your screen, and how mindful you are when stepping away from shared technology. Next, reflect on protecting confidential information. Children's records, assessments, and family communications must always be handled with care. Ask yourself what boundaries you will maintain to ensure that information stays within secure, approved systems. When handling ethical dilemmas, remember that not every situation will be straightforward. Your action plan should include pausing before reacting, reviewing policies, and aligning decisions with professional standards, such as those outlined by the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Finally, consider how you will model digital responsibility. Your daily technology habits demonstrate professionalism and set expectations for colleagues and families. This plan represents your commitment to maintaining trust, safety, and integrity in every digital interaction. This scenario challenges you to apply your cyber safety action plan in a realistic situation where convenience and security compete. Downloading confidential progress reports onto a personal laptop introduces several risks. Personal devices may not meet program security standards, may lack encryption, or could be accessed by others in your household. Even if your intention is simply to meet a deadline, transferring sensitive data outside approved systems compromises confidentiality. Your action plan should guide your response. If you committed to using only secure, program-approved platforms and avoiding personal devices for documentation, then this choice would conflict with that plan. Instead, consider alternatives. Communicating with your director about the system outage, requesting extended access, or completing the work once the secure platform is restored. Ethical digital practice requires consistency. Your action plan is designed for moments exactly like this, when professional integrity must outweigh convenience. Now that you've completed this lesson, take a moment to intentionally reflect on your growth. Return to the pre-assessment questions you considered at the beginning of this module. Ask yourself, have your answers changed? Perhaps you are now more aware of how small habits, such as password reuse or quick text communication, can pose a significant risk. Maybe you see more clearly how confidentiality extends into every digital interaction. Consider what new awareness you've gained about cybersecurity threats, ethical decision-making, and your professional responsibility to protect children's information. Most importantly, identify the professional commitments you will carry forward. Protecting digital tools is not a one-time task. It is an ongoing responsibility. Your daily choices, guided by ethical standards such as those outlined by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, demonstrate your integrity and professionalism. This reflection is your final step in moving from knowledge to accountable practice. Thank you for completing Lesson 4, Protecting Digital Tools and Upholding Ethical Responsibilities. In this lesson, we shifted from awareness to accountability. We examined common cybersecurity threats in early childhood settings, explored prevention strategies, and applied ethical decision-making to real-world scenarios. Most importantly, we connected digital responsibility to professional standards, including the principles outlined by the National Association for the Education of Young Children Code of Ethical Conduct. Remember, cybersecurity in early childhood is not just about devices or software. It is about safeguarding children's dignity, maintaining family trust, and upholding your professional integrity. Small, consistent actions, such as locking devices, using secure platforms, verifying emails, and reflecting before sharing information, create a strong culture of safety. Take a moment to reflect. What is one specific commitment from your cyber safety action plan that you will implement immediately? How will you ensure your digital practices consistently align with ethical standards? Next, complete the quiz to assess your understanding and identify any areas that may need further review. Closing thought. Ethical digital practice is not reactive. It is proactive. Protecting children's information is a daily responsibility and a defining characteristic of a true early childhood professional.